My name is Colonel Jason Condry. I am your Garrison commander, and I'm joined tonight by Major General Joe Girard, one of U.S. Army Europe's deputy commanders. Sir?
Thank you very much, Jay. And so a lot of you are probably wondering who I am and why I'm here. And so this is a U.S. Army garrison in Europe, and Lieutenant General Cavoli is the U.S. Army Europe commander. And as such, he is the senior commander for all U.S. forces in theater. And so he is responsible for all of the garrisons in the theater as well. And one of the things he does is delegates the responsibility of the senior responsible officer to one of his deputy commanders for each of the garrisons throughout the theater. So I am the senior responsible officer here in Stuttgart. And so that primarily deals with the force protection and the safety of those that reside and work here in this garrison. Now, I want you to know that every decision that Jay and I make has your best interest in the safety of all the members that work here and their families foremost in our minds. And as you well know also, Stuttgart is a unique installation, unlike any other in the theater, mainly because of the two four-star headquarters, the two combatant commands that are located here. And so Jay gets a lot of help in doing his job, not only from me, but from the combatant commands and the senior leaders there, as well as IMCOM, Installation Management Command, which is his direct supervisor with respect to running this garrison. I do want you to know that we hold a daily teleconference with the chiefs of staff of AFRICOM, EUCOM, and our other mission partners to ensure that all the policies that we put in place are coordinated and synchronized with those commands to ensure that we don't put a policy in place that prohibits the ability of those organizations to conduct daily business, because we all know how important the work that they do is, and it can't be interrupted. So with that, I would like to take just a minute to thank so many people that are working together to fight this virus with us. And I'll start with the combatant commands, EUCOM, AFRICOM. The list is long. DISA, 110, Task Force 10, SOCUR, SOCAF, the MP company that is doing yeoman's work, the Signal Battalion, DENTAC, MEDAC. I think I could list every organization here in the garrison, and we just appreciate very much all that all of you are doing to work together to support our efforts with respect to fighting this virus. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jay.
First of all, we're going to plan on spending about 45 minutes tonight. I know some of you have already put some questions in. We're prepared to answer those. I do want to give you a quick update on COVID-19. I want to also provide a quick review on the thinking behind the measure that we implemented this week. I know yesterday a lot of things were closed that would have otherwise been open, and today we opened the doors with a new schedule. And then the other thing we'll do is transition into some of the questions that you've asked, and take those questions as they continue to come in. I will tell you that I've got a lot of the experts across the installation that are monitoring. We're going to do our best to answer those questions that pop up. So if you've put something in and you don't see myself or General Girard offer an answer, we'll either get to it during the stream or we'll come back and answer it here before too long. And likewise, if anything we say generates more questions, I invite you to send those to us. I'm always interested in knowing what kind of things we need to provide back to you, the community. So I do want to start with a quick understanding of the situation, kind of what I am seeing and what drove a lot of the changes that you experienced this week. So first of all, COVID-19 continues to spread within our community. We have additional positive cases each day, and today marks approximately 3 weeks. Actually, I think tomorrow would be 3 weeks on the dot, where we made a dramatic and noticeable shift in how we were doing business here within this military community. Canceled the spring bazaar. We stopped doing all things that required gatherings of people, meetings, implemented some initial alternate work plans. And so there was some very noticeable changes as we recognized that we were behind the curve when it came to this virus. I think at this point, there are probably very few among you that don't have a neighbor or a coworker that has received that dreaded call that said, hey, you and your family are at home for the next 14 days until this virus has run its course. And so that I know has had an impact on a lot of people across the community. I think what's perhaps most concerning, and as I have an opportunity to talk with our doctors and those doctors that are doing the team trace activities, is there's about 15% of our cases across the community that we still can't link to a individual, to an event, to some sort of activity. And so the fact that we can't link them to one point in time, one individual, gives me pause. It makes me think that it's everywhere, and that despite all of the social distancing, all the individual measures, the hand washing, the personal hygiene, all the cleaning and of surfaces that we do, almost as a matter of routine with only 3 weeks of this, behind us, even with all those efforts, the virus still continues to spread, and it spreads and is affecting us in ways that we cannot pinpoint and isolate, because thus far that's been the way that we've responded to this, is to aggressively pursue the virus, figure out where it's been, and continue to try and isolate it to prevent the spread. And so that led me to believe that we needed to do something. We need to figure out how to get in front of the virus, how to change fundamentally the things that we're doing in order to break the patterns the virus has offered. And so 2/3 of our clinic staff, they're waiting to get back into the fight. We've had a closure of our main exchange. We've had a closure of a bank based upon asymptomatic testing. Those things, in my mind, are drivers for why we needed to do what you see happening around you as of this week. And so in terms of the things that I think as the Garrison commander, you are asking me to do, what I need to do in the face of this adversary is first of all, protect those vital services. Those things that the mission partners depend on in order to continue to do their jobs day in and day out, and the things that the families and service members that live here need in order to, just to do daily activities, to be able to go to work. And from my perspective, that's the main exchange, that's our community commissaries, that's our community mail rooms, and our food courts. I mean, we have lots of people that, whether you're living in the hotel or living in the barracks, you don't have a kitchen. So the food service, even if you wouldn't consider it to be nutritious food, it is essential for us to be able to keep things going, keep the lights on. The other thing I think we need to do is protect those that are most vulnerable within our community. It's not real easy to define who those people are. We've got some medical experts that have given a stab at it, but the reality is we're learning each and every day, but we know that we've got to add additional layers of defense around those individuals. And so we're doing as much as we can. We're trying to make special accommodations that minimize the chance of contact with the virus by those that are either in that category or those that are supporting those in that category as they bring them the things that help keep them sustained. And then the last piece is I think we needed some additional control measures on how we shop. The days of leisure shopping because you're bored, those are gone. We're not eating out as much, so the demand on our commissaries is that much higher. We have more people going into our stores, the stores on the installation, than we have in the past. And for good reason. We've got measures in place that are designed to protect the community and to ensure you have constant access. And so for that reason, we've had to make some adjustments. So here's some actions that you saw this week. So first of all, with an understanding of the virus, we have expanded some of the individual social distancing, some of those measures that you've already implemented, the hygiene measures, the distancing. We've tried to take that to the next level and apply that from an organizational perspective. And so that's really changing how we schedule, how we organize work, when things are open, so that with an understanding of how quickly the symptoms present, how long the virus lives and runs its course if someone is infected. Those are the things that we took into consideration to try and create an opportunity to break the cycle, to break the spread, to help isolate this virus where it is so that we can continue to do the things we need to do, to meet the mission requirements and to sustain our families, sustain life. It's really that simple. So that's the red, white, and blue concept. I know we pushed that on the community rather rapidly, but the reality is, after seeing the closure of services last week and the inability to anticipate that was going to happen, the urgency was necessary. And so I know many of you found out Sunday with a video that you're going to be assigned to a group, a red group, a white group, a blue group. And your organization did that. There are some of you out there that still don't know what group you're in. There are some of you out there that don't belong to an organization, the retirees as an example. I'm asking you to pick a group if there's not someone that comes in and tells you what group you're in. The reality is we've got to spread the demand on our facilities, on our services, out as best as possible throughout the month. So this is a change. I recognize that. This is not your standard 7-day week, duty days, weekends. From my perspective, every day is COVID day until it's not. And so as we implement this new change, the reality is this is designed to get in front of an adversary that we can't see. This is designed to deal with a virus that up until this point has made the rules. I refuse to let the virus make the rules for this community any longer. And I know that there's overwhelming support in trying to break the spread. And so here's what I hope that we will achieve. First of all, there's going to be about 2 weeks between when I'm asking you to come shop at our commissaries and our PX. So that's going to allow the virus to run its course. It's going to be isolated either for those of us that have it and don't know it, or those that are sick. They will come out of this and be ready to come back and use these services without being a risk to themselves or others. We'll protect the staff. So again, this virus has created an opportunity for us to, as a collective, reevaluate those that we believe to be mission critical. So I know there are new homeschool teachers now that have a whole new appreciation for what teachers are doing at our Dodea schools. The fact that the garbage man coming on the installation, that's a pretty critical occupation right now. Cashiers, people that are stocking shelves, those are all things that we now realize we have to be able to provide. Postal, all of those things, all of those individuals that previously you went in and used a service and didn't think twice about. The reality is those individuals are critical. They're critical to us continue to meet our mission requirements. And so we've got to protect those staff. And that's something as simple as implementing, some additional cleaning and hygiene. That's some breaks in schedules. That's some deliberate scheduling of them so that if a group of them are impacted by the virus, that we have shortened the amount of time that service is closed. And so that's going to put some pressure on you to utilize the honor system. I can't go back and check the work of your organization, your headquarters that's assigned you. There are going to be people that don't operate within the system. My estimation is there's going to be very few of those instances. As I'm looking at what's happened around us, most people are rising to the occasion, and there are very few that are finding an opportunity to work the seams. And so I'm asking you to work within the rules. There's a reason why they're there. It's deliberate. We've designed this on purpose, and it's not going to work if people don't participate. And so I know that 2 weeks is inconvenient. I know that it creates problems. I have a family of 6. I understand what the implications are for those that don't have a big refrigerator, for those that have big families. I realize how much that you depend upon, the services that we're providing. But understand that this is designed to keep those services in the fight. And I know there are many in our community that live off the installation, and they use grocery stores and pharmacies and all those things off the installation, the ones that are just down the street from their homes. I don't anticipate that will change. I'm not asking you to adhere to a 2-week cycle when it comes to those that are just down the street. The reality is they may not be open in 2 weeks. I don't know. The uncertainty over the last 3 weeks has led me to believe that we must do everything within our power to make sure that the facilities that are on the installation, that are within the control of this community, that they absolutely remain open. So doing all this, I think, will also offer the greatest protection to the members of our community that are the most vulnerable. And so I'm going to ask you, and I saw that today with day one of opening, that there were people that were waiting for the high-risk hour, the first hour of shopping of each day, to allow those people to go in. That's when the facilities are the cleanest. They do a cleaning the night before and again as everybody comes in, and that is the time when there's the best opportunity for shopping without being at risk for those individuals. And then ultimately, all of these actions ensure that this Garrison is the shelter. You've heard us talk about shelter in place, what that means for us. The intent is that this is the shelter. That regardless of whether you live on the installation, live off the installation, that you have some confidence and know that the gates are going to be open and that these services are going to be available to you. So the virus is invisible. It has a process. Thus far, it's made the rules. This week, we started making the rules. And so I understand that amounts to some inconvenience. I'm asking for your patience. Sir, I think we get into some questions now.
All right, I'll take the first one. And someone asked, are other Army garrisons around Europe implementing similar restrictions measures? Is travel to those other garrisons for work-related purposes allowed? And so the answer to the second part of that is obviously yes, work continues. And with respect to the first part, are other garrisons taking similar measures? I will tell you that at U.S. Army Europe, we have met on a daily basis for the past 3 weeks, and General Cavoli has met with, and during that VTC, he's met with each of the SROs, the senior responsible officers, other than myself, and we all are on the same sheet of music with respect to the measures we are taking to protect the force. There were one or two that were in different places throughout Europe. Obviously, everybody knows that Italy has been locked down the longest, and that's one of the U.S. Army Europe garrisons as well. And as the virus crept north, there were some installations that were taking measures maybe a day before the others, but we are all in sync with respect to the restrictions that we are putting in place to keep everyone safe. So all the installations are pretty much mirroring each other with respect to these rules and regulations.
Thanks, sir. So Stacy asks, I know this is something that would make an already tough schedule even harder, but is there a way to have commissaries and PX closed during stock days and open when people aren't stocking? You put even more people in the stores at the same time, both employees and volunteers. Wouldn't that limit the risk and spread if there were shoppers one day and stockers a different day? So, Stacy, one thing that this process does is it focuses on when these services are available to the community. What I don't want to do is interrupt shipments that come into the commissaries, come into the PX. And so therefore, that may mean that shipment has come in that day and we have to be there to receive that shipment. And the reality is there are items that are on those trucks that you may want in there at the time that you're in there. And so I want to make sure that when you come in there, first of all, you're reassured by the fact that the lines of supply, they haven't been interrupted by this virus yet. And so that's going to be a constant effort because, again, the demand has almost doubled in our commissaries. And so that means that in order for there to be things on the shelves, I'm probably going to have stockers in there at the same time. And I recognize that may mean there's more people in there. And so we've done some deliberate analysis of how many people should be inside our commissaries and our expresses primarily. And so we've managed that based upon the number of carts. So you will see that in order to come into the commissary, you get a cart. The great thing about a cart is you're not going to run that up on the person in front of you. That's naturally going to create the social distancing. People are going to have to make sure that they weave through the aisles, don't all collect in the dairy section, do things like that to continue to maintain those individual social distancing. But the reality is if I have things that I think the community wants or needs, and it's a matter of putting it, taking it from a box and putting it on the shelf, then I think it's probably best to do it that way. Get it up there. even though that may mean that somebody has to wait or weave around somebody that's stocking a shelf. So great question. Thank you.
So Katya asked, is there an end in sight? And unfortunately, we don't see that end yet. We have people daily that are looking at the numbers, looking at the trends, and trying to determine how long this will last, and what will change so that we know that it is we're on the downward slope, and what is flattening, when is the curve starting to flatten out. So unfortunately, there's not a good answer to that question right now, but please know that we are studying it every day, and we are even starting to try to understand what the end would look like when we come out, what the new normal will be like when we come out the backside of this virus.
Jake has a three-part question. I always appreciate the three-part question. So this is related to General Order 1 Alpha. So this is 1 Alpha indicates that we have already evolved based upon what's happening outside of the wire in our local community to make sure that the practices and the procedures that we have here mirror those of our German partners. And so first question, and sir, if you'll take the third part. First one is related to applicability. Applicability. So thanks for the question, Jake. So the question is, this order applies to others present or seeking access to the military installations of U.S. Army Garrison Stuttgart. Does this also include contractors? And so I know the question was more specific about this certain contract, but the reality is the intent of the order is to make it applicable to anybody that comes on to the installation. And the reality is, as a garrison commander, I've always had the ability to control access. But we wanted to make sure that there was some emphasis on everyone that this applied to. Because I know there's some concerns in the community that says, hey, these people don't believe they have to operate by the same rules as those that are wearing a uniform, that those are government, employed civilians. And the reality is it applies to everyone. And the penalties apply to everyone. The penalties are fairly harsh, and they're not ones that myself or any of the leadership here want to see imposed. But the reality is, regardless of what organization you belong to, if you want access and you work on the installation, then it does apply to you. You must adhere to the measures that our German host nation has put in place and that we have echoed with General Order 1 Alpha. The other one is about all other travel being prohibited. So that question comes back to the nature of the mission, the reason behind the contract. And so the way those orders are termed is so that the organization and the leadership are directing what is mission essential. And so that question is one that I'd ask you put back up your chain. I would presume that at this point, anything that's non-essential, most supervisors, most leaders are saying, hey, we don't want that to happen. We will wait. So in terms of travel to and from installations, to and from your place, where you live and where you work, if telework was possible, those are all the things that I've watched leadership across the installation put in place in order to protect the community as much as possible from this virus.
And the third part of that was the question I just answered a minute ago about our other Army garrisons implementing similar measures. So I'll go to a question that Suzanne asked, and she states that the president made several announcements yesterday with respect to new drugs, treatments, etc., and also mentioned a 5-minute test. And she asked when those will be available to us, and is there a timeline for us to receive them? And no, there is no timeline for us to receive them, and I don't know when they will be available. We will, obviously, the Department of Defense medical community is working this issue very hard as well, and they will provide us with the latest that they can throughout the Department of Defense. I will tell you that there is no shortage of testing currently. We have the ability, some even here in the community, we can send tests off the installation to the local community, but right now we send all of those tests to Landstuhl, and there is not a backlog there, and there's not a shortage of testing. So that is not an issue, and most of our tests now are coming back within the next 24 hours. So that is not an issue for us at this time.
Thanks, sir. And I've got a question here from Jenny. So the question starts with the mailboxes are always open. Can we check our mailbox when it's best for our family and only pick up packages during our red, white, and blue days? So the short answer is yes. Red, white, and blue is focused on when I'm asking you to go pick up your packages when the mail window is open. I don't anticipate there's a lot of people touching the dial on your community mailbox, community mailroom mailbox. So I don't think there's much risk of transmission there. I would ask that while it's open and there's people doing the dance, trying to maintain 6 foot of separation, that you don't go and check your mail during that time. Come when the window is closed, go directly to your mailbox, and then get whatever letter mail is waiting for you. I mean, I know that the mail situation is tricky. There are people that are waiting on packages right now. I've got 2 kids that have a birthday during the red window, and birthday packages have probably arrived, and I'm in the white group. So we will have a delayed delivery of birthday packages in my house. And so I understand you replicate that scenario for whatever reason 10 times over across the the stairwell apartment that you live in, across the office that you work in. There are impacts. I'm going to ask that if there is something that is emergent, that you let me know. We will see how we can make some sort of alternative situation possible that allows you to get something that's sitting in the mailroom that your family needs right now. So lots of questions out there about this, and I realize that an announcement on Sunday with implementation on Monday has impacts on families across the formation, across the installation, both on and off. And so I understand that, and I'm asking for some patience, first of all, some self-assessment as to whether or not that last item in your home fitness set is something that can't wait until next week or 2 weeks from now if you're in Blue Group. But if there is something that you need and you don't want to break the rules, which I appreciate, let me know and we'll find a way to make that happen.
So gentlemen, we've had several questions come in. We'll start with a few policy questions. First of all, Mo asks, are guests still allowed on the installations?
So Mo, that's a great question. Actually had that question asked to me today by one of our ponds guards because they believe that that's an additional risk that is unnecessary. So until I find the moment that the risk outweighs bringing our guests on, the guests that are otherwise authorized, whether it's a family member, whether it's a fiance, there's at least 20 different scenarios where if I implemented a no guest policy, I would have to reverse myself. And so as much as possible, I want to stay with yes. I want to ask you to make the right decision. You're bringing somebody on the installation. Is that necessary? Are you minimizing the opportunity for the virus to spread? And if you've made the measures, if you've done the things that we all need to do, then I see no reason to limit guest access to the installation. Still going to have to go through the same process. Still have to go through the installation access process. Go into the office. There's additional risk associated with doing that, doing the sign-in procedures. Understand that, weigh those risks with the benefit. But right now, I don't anticipate making a change to that policy.
Another policy question. Juan asks, after the Secretary of Defense's 60-day ground rules expire, will service members be able to PCS?
Sir, do you want that one?
I'll try that one. And the answer is, we don't know the answer to that question. We are continuing to work with our Department of the Army, Secretary of Defense's office, as are the other services and components here in Stuttgart to find the answers to that. But the first part of that question is when that expires in 60 days. We don't know that it will expire in 60 days. That depends on how this virus and how we continue to fight this virus and whether we have success within those 60 days. So it could be that is extended. So I think that's the first part of that question that we've got to determine over the course of the next 60 days, and then we'll get to the latter part of that question.
Sir, another policy question from Joel. How will we be able to continue with our haircuts without the barbershop available to us?
Hey, let me take that one. And the reason I ask, so I was in isolation at the beginning of this, and so my haircut is according to my standards is not within standard, and so but I will tell you that someone in my office cut my hair about a week and a half ago, and it's about time for them to cut my hair again. And so I think everybody knows that nobody is going to. We still have a standard that we need to maintain, and we're not going to let everybody turn into hair bags during this while we fight this virus. But at the same time, just as when you're deployed, somebody cut your hair then, and it may not have been somebody at the barbershop. So we've got to find a way to at least maintain a semblance of a standard while we mitigate the measures and execute the measures that we're trying to currently to protect everybody on this installation.
And sir, if I could, let me add on to it. So I think the other piece that's relevant with respect to the barbershop is that if a barber off the installation opens up just for one customer, that's a 2,500 euro fine in the state of Baden-Württemberg. And that fine doubles up to 25,000 euros for opening up a barbershop. So in terms of us matching what our partners are doing off the installation, that's going to continue to be an issue. And so I know my family is now the proud new owners of a set of clippers. And as many of you that have seen me in videos and over the approximate 2 weeks since we have closed our barbershops, and my desire to maintain the Army standards for haircuts. And I will say, understand what your service's grooming standards are. So I know from an infantryman, it's one way. Our Special Forces brethren may be slightly different. But now I will soon have a new haircut. And so these clippers that the Conyer family now owns, I will be the proud recipient of the second haircut my wife has given. And so to my son, I know there's lots of inconveniences associated with these new times. And so you'll be the first haircut. And I'm hoping that someone who cares what my hair looks like, that this will not be a significant inconvenience. That inconvenience, or the level of it, will be on display for the entire community here very, very soon.
Sir, we'll move to a few service questions. Hannah asks, will there be more Lysol and disinfectant products available? RB has been out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, Hannah, I know there is if you want hand sanitizer, if you want wipes, there's a reason why the demand has spiked and everybody's trying to buy those. The short answer is yes. So there's been an additional surge of those being delivered here, and what both the PX and the commissary will do is they will implement some sort of controls onto the purchase of those things, so that if your group is not up when those things are available, that they won't all go to the blue group or the red group or whatever the case may be. And so I've asked them, based upon the way we've rolled this out, that we make sure that those in-demand items, now I'm pretty sure we've got enough toilet paper on the shelves now, but for those in-demand items, the hand sanitizer, the antibacterial soap, the wipes, all those things, that as we get them, that we make sure that we put them out in a way that enables the most people to get some. And so at the same time, I'm asking you that if you see those on the shelves, don't load your cart up with them. Don't put a cashier in a position to tell you that you can only have 2 of those. So there'll be signs up, they'll be posted. I'm asking that you adhere to those and not create a problem at a cash register. Thank you.
Gentlemen, in the vein of service, Mary asks, are they changing the blue group around Easter? Or in other words, is the PX and commissary going to be closed for Easter?
I'll answer that one. So, Mary, from my perspective, every day is COVID day until it's not. And so I know there's questions about Easter. There are some concerns that I have with respect to the Works Council and our union for our host nation workers. But the reality is we're going to arrange schedules so that those services remain open. One of the best things about this process is we now have services open at your community commissary on days that it wouldn't have been opened in the past. And so that's the predictability that this offers. And I know Easter will come. the Easter Bunny will come. I want to make sure that if that's the day that you have chosen to go to the commissary to restock, that it's open for you.
Chris asked, and actually lots of people have asked, why can't today be red, tomorrow white, and the next day blue, and follow like that?
So again, that comes back to the thinking and the understanding of the virus and trying to break ourselves up into different sections so that the transmission and spread doesn't occur. If we've immediately divided ourselves into 3, then those people that are out and in contact with each other in that high impact service, 2/3 of the community is arguably at home or just going to and from their place of duty. And so you have now limited the ability of the virus spread to 1/3 of our community. And then further limited it based upon people making deliberate decisions not to go to shop at the commissary and the PX every day of the 3-day window. Being very deliberate about how you're shopping, being very deliberate about when you go shopping, and knowing that when you've gone shopping, that you don't have to do it again for the next 2 weeks. And so that's how we break the rules, write our own rules in the face of this virus that we can't see or otherwise detect without a specific test.
Back to a few more policy questions. Mark asks, is it true that Stuttgart now has more cases, positive cases, than Italy?
So, Mark, short answer is yes, and by far. We are winning, and not in a way that any of us want to be winning. So I will tell you that we're monitoring this closely. Very early, our communities, our military communities in Italy, they locked things down. And they made some good decisions early that I think have prevented the spread of the virus. And it is wreaked havoc. If you've watched the news, you know what's happening in Italy. I don't know where Germany is or if we're on the same kind of path as Italy. And that's why the things that we are doing are as important as they are. But I know there's questions about how many cases we have. There's different reasons why we don't share that information. The reality is I want you to know that we have a lot of cases. We continue to have additional cases. And these measures and the things that you're doing as individuals, the social distancing, the proper hygiene, staying at home, being deliberate about shopping, exposing yourself and your family the least amount possible, that's the way we get in front of this virus. That's the way we stop it from spreading.
Mike and Katie ask, is the 60-day use-or-lose leave limit for active duty going to be increased to accommodate no authorized leave?
I will just tell you that I know the Department of the Army is looking at that policy and trying to determine what the future will hold for it. So that is a question that we've asked, and the Department of the Army is working it. So that's the Army answer, but I don't know about the other services.
Gentlemen, we'll move to a couple medical-related questions. If we can answer them, we also have some people online who are assisting. First of all, somebody asked, how's Dr. Baker doing?
So I'm sure Dr. Baker is in a position to answer that question for himself. You know, he is enjoying quite a few texts and emails and phone calls from me each day. At least that's what he tells me. And he is the one that's in constant communication with the members of our community that have tested positive. He's talking to our doctors that are running the trace teams. He's talking to our clinic commander. So they're ready to be back in the fight as quickly as possible, and looking forward to being visible here, you know, in live stream and other things.
Jay asks, my friend's boss at Patch has symptoms, was tested and inconclusive. Now he's refusing to retest but is isolated. I'm concerned for my friend and their family. What's the proper procedure?
So I know Doc Baker or the clinic commander will jump in on this. There are screening guidelines that we use and that are published to me. But the reality is every individual that comes through that screening line at Patch has a different set of circumstances. And there is not a A plus B plus C equals D scenario that I can detail with you that will not survive the different considerations that apply to the next car behind. And so I think it's important to understand that the decisions that are made that say you'll be screened or you won't be screened is based upon individuals and their medical situation. And so the instinct is to say, hey, I have the same thing going on, but that guy got tested and I didn't. I'm asking you to trust our medical experts. They have the best information. They're able to ask questions that provide answers that you and I don't know about. And so those are the things that are driving a decision to test or not to test. I will tell you that if somebody in your family is infected with COVID-19 and you drive up with a spouse and 3 kids that have COVID-19 symptoms, chances are we're not going to do a test. We're going to presume that your entire family has COVID-19 and say your 14 days starts now. So that's not a good use of tests. That's not a good use of testing capability in launch tool. And so I understand that you talked to a friend that went through 2 days ago. The reality is this virus changes quickly. Our understanding of it changes quickly. And that changes how our doctors approach each and every engagement as they do testing and screening. And so trust them, trust the process, and we'll go from there.
And sir, for our final question, because we're at about 45 minutes right now, Des wants to know, if you can't speak the timelines, what conditions need to exist for the Garrison to start normalizing operations?
And I'll take that one. We don't know what those conditions are yet. We are starting to study that and try to determine that, but we don't know. The one thing we do know is that we don't want to start opening the Garrison back up and return to what we used to know as normal and have another spike in coronavirus here. So we're continuing to evaluate, study, and determine the way ahead, but we don't know the answer to that question yet.
Thanks, sir. So I know we'll wrap up here. First of all, I appreciate all the great questions. Sir, I appreciate you being here. I know today was the first day that the community experienced yet another evolution in how we're going to fight this virus. I know that our efforts probably created more questions than we answered. You know, there's lots of questions still out there like, why don't you do appointments for this? Why don't you do appointments for the commissary? You know, the reality is if you look at things like the APO, where we had an appointment process and it simply didn't meet the community's demands, so we're going away from it or looking to find a way to do something different. Want to make sure that we reassure the community with what we're doing. We provide the services you need as soon as we can get them to you. In some cases, that's not going to be fast enough. I know there's inconveniences out there. I know this is different. I know this is going to be hard to adapt to. And I hope that at the point where you get to where you feel comfortable with it, we no longer have to do it. But I don't know when that's going to be. You know, last time I spoke with this community, I asked you to please be patient with each other, with yourselves. I want you to give us some ideas. A lot of the things that you are seeing happening, you know, the information that we're providing on the app. There's a new volunteer button that helps shape, you know, how those with some medical experience might be able to volunteer. Those that want to volunteer to go get groceries for somebody that is in red group, you know, next week, how you can get groceries for somebody that's in blue group. So those kind of things, and I know a lot of that stuff is already happening on neighborhood and group pages, but we want to try and centralize that so that we can get our shelves restocked. We don't have a truck that rolls in without the ability to offload it and quickly get the things that you want and need on shelves. You know, and the other thing I said is I think under these conditions, in these times, it's better to be kind than to be right. And so I know that the dialogue on Facebook, it's incredible. This job offers me an opportunity to see the best in this community. And from my perspective, we have risen to the occasion that this virus has presented for us. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm impressed with what I see. I'm looking forward to what's next because I don't know that we have seen all of the tests that will be laid in front of us. I am confident, however, that those tests will not get the best of us, that we will be better because of this. And so, again, I appreciate your time. Sir, final comments?
And on behalf of General Cavoli, I want to say thank you to everyone in this community for, 1, being patient, 2, working together, and 3, understanding that this is not a new normal, and we have to figure out how the way ahead by working together and continuing to evolve with the changes that we think are necessary to protect everyone and their families. So thank you very much.